All right, so I'm excited for our book review segment. Science, photography, and storytelling is woven in this next great offering by renowned author, photographer, filmmaker Shem Compion, The Rift, Scars of Africa. It explores our origin story, a living laboratory, and also just a mirror to our future. It's a powerful, unsettling at times, but also deeply human exploration of our continent that is shaped by fault lines, and that be that geographical, political, historical, or emotional. A continent that's still living with visible and invisible scars. But we're going to delve in further. Let's chat to the author himself. Shem, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you, Liesl. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. And I like what you said. The rift is a geological formation. It literally is one that we learn about in our school books. Yet the metaphors are so strong. The culture, the ecology, the biodiversity, that all those elements come together in this one place, the scar of Africa, this geological fault line. This is the largest geological formation on the planet. And in 100 million years, it's going to physically separate Africa in two. There will be an ocean splitting Africa into two. And what I find so significant about it is that this sharing apart of Africa is essentially also the binding fabric of all those great things. There's 300 million people who move in and out of the rift every single day. There's wildlife areas, the most significant wildlife areas on the planet. The greatest mammal abundance is as a result of the Rift Valley. There's environmental issues. There's conservation issues. There's lovely, as you look at this photograph here, there's lovely cultural issues. I mean, this is an incredible part of Africa where we have these monolithic churches. And so the Rift Valley is the source, this little binding thread that is what makes so many great elements of Africa shine.
Well, Shem, no, absolutely. And I mean, just to your point about what you've encompassed, a picture really says 1,000 words, because it's very clear that, Africa's deepest roots are not just physical, they're political, there's psychological, there's historical as well. But after reading it, what was left unresolved for you? And also when you want people to be confronted by the truth, the hard truths as well, right? You also started the book by saying that it's important to have courage to ask the right questions and the right answers. And that's important. And then that obviously comes through in the first opening pages as well. So I wonder if you could speak to some of those hard truths that you helped us face.
We live very often in isolation. And we always see our world in very single silos, and that might be your own little suburb that you live in, but it might be the country that you live in too, or it's the field of profession that you work in, your career path. The Rift Valley shows us that these are intertwined, that geology and culture and wildlife, and then because of that, the politics are all intertwined. And a great example is someplace like Nakuru, which is in the heart of the Rift Valley. This is a lake with a Rift Valley escarpment, so it's very evident that you're deep within a valley that's sharing Africa apart. But this lake is filled with wildlife. And you've got flamingos, you've got lions, you've got leopards, you've got rhino in the forests, but you've also got Nakuru town on the top. And people are coming from the town, moving past the wildlife, in amongst the geology shaped by the rift. And so that really, to me, spoke very strongly to how intertwined it really is. And if you look at the Rift Valley, it's got over 100 volcanoes. In Ethiopia, one volcano erupted about 2 weeks ago. And those volcanoes are the same volcanoes that nourish the plains, that feed all the wildlife today. So the ash from the volcanoes nurtured and nourished those plains, but also the same plains where we have agriculture and we farm on. So, it's sustained humans over the course of time. So for me, it was showing that we are not living in silos. They were so intertwined. And I like to think of it as one living organism, really, the Rift Valley. And I think that's what the story of the book was about. When I first started it, I saw it as a geological scar. And I was very fortunate to have traveled over the last 23 years from north to south and everywhere in between. But the more I delved in, the more I realized, wow, so intertwined. And then working with the cultures in these very harsh environments, northern Kenya, southern Ethiopia.
Actually, let's get into that, because I like how you challenge the idea of Africa as not being a hopeless continent. It's a rising continent. And so in the title itself, Scars of Africa, the word scars suggests healing, but there's also some permanent marks. And I wonder if you believe that Africa is healing, or are we just merely adapting to pain, or the scars presented as weaknesses, or is it proof of survival from your vantage point?
I love your point. Thank you. Your proof of survival.
Yeah.
But I wanted the cover to have a very contrasting and very affronting title, but then also have the image that was on there, which are physical scarification on the body, and juxtapose that against what we thought was a geological scar, being the Rift Valley itself. And what I've learned that this book is, it's not to flatten African narratives. It's actually to honor them. And that's what this book does. It really honors African narratives. And the person who wrote the foreword to the book, which was the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Haile Mariam Desalegn, if you look at the foundations and the work that he does in Ethiopia, where you have 100 million people living in subsistence farming, and the work that he's done to transform the farming methods in a very sort of three-tiered approach that has changed the landscape. It's improved the landscape so dramatically, but it's also provided such economic benefits to those 100 million people. And so those are the narratives that we want to bring out from it. And if you read Sabrina Alba's prologue to the story, she came from Somalia, and how positive the stories are coming from a place that seemingly in the world press gets quite a lot of negative mention, and how positive it can be. And you look at her words there. Yeah. So there are these incredible stories. And just another one is the sort of a big one in African Rift Valley is human-wildlife conflict. We have a large amount of wildlife, and we have humans living on the periphery of that. 30 years ago in the Masai Mara, there were around about 2 humans per square kilometer. Now they're 30. So, and each of those humans want cattle and access to normal life stuff. So there are these challenges of human-wildlife conflict. Yet the stories of Gorongosa and other places where the success of those is so positive, and how they've managed to address that wildlife and humans can live in commune rather than conflict. Because that is the story that we want to raise up here.
Well, it's again that intertwining of humanity and nature, and that goes with the environmental challenges, it goes with the global demands as well that are increasing, but even just the tribes and the various cultures, because you have to then look at identity and belonging and just the human cost, right, beyond the politics itself. What was explored on that front for you? And were you left with more hope, or was it a bit more destitute?
Yeah. Well, if you look at this photograph right here,
yes.
For us coming from our societies, especially like South African society, we look at that image and we just see beautiful jewelry. Yet that jewelry represents inherited generational inheritance. Each of those strands of beads is passed down, and the bead actually grows and grows and grows. The beadwork grows and grows and grows. And it's a representation of wealth, of status, fertility, age set, all with a little bit of additional personal flair, of course, because we want to look beautiful. But the meaning behind that neck of beads is way deeper than what we as outsiders come and view and perceive. And so that, I think, just speaks directly to your question there, is that it takes the more you dig, and the more you start understanding and working in these remote areas in Africa, the more you understand that the people that are living there are so connected to the land that way beyond what we as living in a first world or a semi-developed world live in can ever understand.
Well, Shem, I know that story continues. I'm going to leave our conversation there, but thank you for this masterpiece. I mean, through your work, The Rift Scars of Africa, it portrays a story of Africa that's neither singular nor settled, and it's a read that stayed with me long after I've closed the final page as well, and it really made me appreciate our continent, and it's the continent that we get to call home. So thank you for your wonderful work, and we'll continue to look through those pages. It's a timeless piece. Shem Compion there, the author of The Rift Scars of Africa.